let's talk about the budget. Here we are, $321.9 billion budget, submitting to the legislature, $226.4 billion is general fund. We've $15.7 billion in total reserves, and a shortfall that we're projecting on the revenue and expense side of $11.9 billion.
So I briefly mentioned this in a prior video, but I want to really hone in on it today because I truly believe that this is an important story to know and remember. As Gavin Newsom fights Texas on redistricting and seems to believe that prioritizing a simple congressional map will be the way to launch his 2028 campaign, that as his eyes are set to the stars, right now there is a fire brewing under his feet, which is an appropriate metaphor for California. And that is precisely the fact that as we speak, California is plunging into a massive financial and economic crisis because, newsflash, despite all of his constant arrogance and virtue signaling, Gavin's actually not doing that good a job managing the state, whether that's in the public or private sector, who are both respectively facing their own problems in the month of August in the supposed amazing state of California. Right now, as we speak, the California state government is not only having empty coffers, they're actively bleeding money and running at a deficit, which I really wonder why that could be. I wonder why the Democrats in Sacramento and Gavin Newsom don't have enough money to spend anymore, considering their amazing management skills, right? But simultaneously, we also have a situation where California is now, as Gavin Newsom said, right, once upon a time, is the best economy in America, and that used to be true, now leading the nation in unemployment and much, much more. And again, guys, this all exists at the backdrop of him focusing on the national issues, fighting Trump, redistricting, what's happening underneath his feet. Well, I think it's a prime example of the arrogance, hubris, and ambition of Newsom that ultimately may come back to bite him. This may be his undoing because, as has been pointed out before, hey, Newsom, you can be charismatic, you can be good looking, you can, Donald Trump this. But ultimately, somewhere down the road in 2028, it's going to come up your actual record as governor. And newsflash, not only does it not look good, he's doing nothing to salvage it because he clearly doesn't believe something like his own state economy is all that important. So that said, guys, in today's video, I want to give you these full details on the current situation going on with the California economy, the fact that you have businesses openly boycotting, major crisis, and the fact that Gavin Newsom clearly does not care one bit for it. We'll tell you about it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing is not only the best way to support our videos, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, so I'd like to first of all note that before we get into the full numbers and exactly what we're talking about in California here today, that all of what we're about to say is a massive shot at this narrative that Newsom and Democrats constantly push, which is whenever Republicans try to criticize California or the way it's managed, you notice they always go back to, oh, but the GDP, right? Don't you know California has the largest economy and largest GDP in America, right? It's all you poor red states that don't know how to have money, right? Look at how amazing we're doing. As Gavin Newsom here, for instance, says, and he says this all the time, California is the fourth largest economy in the world. We're so prosperous. Don't you know? We have Silicon Valley and Hollywood and all these things. To which I first of all say, I've always found to be a disingenuous argument because not to take the sort of left-wing view on certain issues that are unrelated, but still it's actually true here, Gavin, and to the Democrats as a whole. You didn't build that. In a sense, you actually stole it, and what you're doing now is destroying the inheritance you were given. And the reason I say that is because it's no secret, California's economic boom and prosperity goes back several decades, right? Gavin Newsom, I know, contrary to some historical accounts, was not there in the 1930s. He did not cause the Dust Bowl that caused a bunch of Midwestern settlers to come to California. He did not create the 1950s and the roaring post-war economy. You know who actually did, as a matter of fact? Republicans. Republicans like, ironically, Richard Nixon and and Ronald Reagan, who were both governors in the state of California, oversaw California growing into the massive juggernaut it is today. And what has happened ever since the 1990s, when Democrats started to take unanimous control of the state, is they've ran it into the ground, right? Everything has exploded. Homelessness has exploded. The cost of living has exploded. In every tangible way, they are screwing it up. And the analogy I've made to it thus far is basically, it's like a rich kid who inherits a bunch of money, right? And then not only do they inherit money and then pretend like they built that themselves, they actively squander their inheritance. Okay, so they squander their inheritance, they're broke, and they're flexing, saying, I'm rich because I still have a little bit of what my parents gave me. But not only did you not build that, you were handed something amazing and you completely destroyed it. Now, that said, they're going to run into 2028 with this big time argument still, right? We're the biggest economy. We're so amazing. The red states are so poor, which is precisely why I bring you today one of many stories. There's many facets of this to talk about, but just first and foremost, Gavin, to your supposedly prosperous and amazing economy, we just got the report earlier in the week that for the second month in a row now, so first it was in June, now it's in July, the state of California leads the nation, first in the nation for highest unemployment rate in all of the United States. So how's your economy doing, Newsom? By the way, I really wonder why that could be. You know, I wonder why new businesses wouldn't be hiring when new businesses are going out of business or packing up and leaving because they can't deal with all of the insanity of your policies, whether that's a ridiculously high minimum wage or high rent or high taxes, or the fact that if you run any kind of store, they have enabled the criminals to go and just rob you, you know, many different things, right? I can't imagine why, you know, must be because of Donald Trump. Actually, as a matter of fact, Gavin Newsom did recently blame Trump for his state's economic woes. But anyways, meanwhile, this is not actually a nationwide picture, because over in the state of Texas, you know, Texas and Florida, he's constantly trying to do this rivalry with, like, haha, we have the bigger GDP. Let's compare GDP sizes, as if somehow I'm responsible for that. Okay. Well, simultaneously in July, Texas broke its jobs record according to new data released by the Texas Workforce Commission, while California, with a massive unemployment crisis, is leading the nation for highest unemployment rate for the second month in a row. This, by the way, beats states like Mississippi or Wyoming or Alaska, or all of the places that Democrats like to make fun of as these like rural, poor, redneck states. Oh, well, they're actually beating your you-know-what right now when it comes to the actual economic growth, right? Not just size of the economy, but the growth rate of the economy, because that's what you ought to measure your own governance based off of, and unemployment rate. So why exactly is it, Newsom, that in the supposedly biggest economy in the nation, this is how you're doing? Well, guys, the story actually goes on. And I think, for instance, one prime example is the recent Bed Bath & Beyond situation. Now, to me, this is not the sole reason by far that California is leading the nation in unemployment, but it is a prime example, because recently, you may have heard about this, but Bed Bath & Beyond is making a comeback, right? They kind of shuttered their doors a long time ago, a couple years ago. Now they're reopening their retail stores, but they just put out the announcement that, quote, we will not open or operate retail stores in California. So as they're opening in all these other places across the nation, they're not doing California. Now, why is that? Again, I think it's pretty common sense, because to run a business in California, a business that creates jobs, it's virtually economically impossible because of Democrat policies, right? Or things that are enabled by Democrat policies, like a bunch of teenagers coming in and stealing your entire store. Nonetheless, here's the reason why. They said, quote, this decision is not about politics. It's about reality. California has created one of the most overregulated, expensive, and risky environments for businesses in America. It's a system that makes it harder to employ people, keep doors open, and deliver value to customers. The result, higher taxes, higher fees, higher wages that many businesses simply cannot sustain, and endless regulations that strangle growth. Even when the state announces a budget surplus, which it's not operating in right now, but it was a couple years ago because of COVID money. We'll talk about that in a second. It's built on the backs of ordinary citizens who are paying too much in businesses that are squeezed until they break. At Bed Bath & Beyond, Our responsibility is to our customers and our shareholders. We will not participate in a system that undermines both. Instead, we're investing in a California strategy that works 24 to 48 hour delivery, and in many cases, same day service. Californians will continue, blah, blah, blah here. But this is what they say. We're taking a stand because it's time for common sense. Businesses deserve the chance to succeed. Employees deserve jobs that last, and customers deserve fair prices. California system delivers the opposite. That's why Bed Bath & Beyond will serve California customers directly, et cetera, et cetera. So you would think, right, that as you're seeing this picture, this is just one company, right? You could say it's a small drop in California's economy, but clearly that's not the case because many businesses are feeling this way. Hence why, again, you're dealing with the highest unemployment rate in America. Turns out they're not the only one. A lot of people are feeling this way. So I guess you asked the question here, what might you expect, guys, the response of Gavin Newsom to be to the fact that American company that's opening stores, creating jobs all around America, doesn't want to do it in California? Well, as you can see here, so eloquently put by the Governor Newsom press office, quote, and they wrote out the word here, F you bye. That's the response. F you bye. Just cuss out an American company that is fed up and disgruntled with what, again, you can say, oh, Bed Bath & Beyond, they're just far-right MAGA white supremacists. Okay, but again, clearly that's not the case when your unemployment rate as a whole is the #1 in the nation. Instead of listening, instead of thinking to themselves, hey, everyone knows California is like terrible to live in terms of economics. How can we fix this? Middle finger. That's his response. By the way, just keep this in mind in 2028, right? As we look forward that, to the struggling American out there that's going to say, hey, Governor Newsom, as a result of this policy, I'm badly affected. That's what he thinks of you. F you, bye. We've always known Gavin Newsom is an insane sociopath who doesn't care about anything but power, but just keep that in mind. And even from Gavin Newsom's official Twitter account here, this is his press account, here's the official one, instead of ignoring it at least, or whatever, right? He just takes shots at Bed Bath & Beyond. He says, the company that already went bankrupt and closed every store across the country 2 years ago, okay. It's just making fun of them for going out of business, even though they're now on a comeback, right? They're not bringing back their business, right? New CEO, all this stuff. And they're opening new stores all across America. They're just not opening in your state. Apparently that's a response, just to sit there and laugh at it. Which again, maybe if it was one company, you could do that. It's a statewide, I should say, problem in your economy. Anyways, here was the further response from the new executive chairman of Bed Bath & Beyond, who, needless to say, is utterly shocked that a governor of this country is getting involved in rhetoric like that.
Well, I think the thing that was really surprising to me is that I tried to articulate in a non-aggressive way exactly why our company wasn't going to reinvest capital in California. And what I found out this afternoon is that Governor Newsom has enough time to respond to a tweet as opposed to a private DM or having somebody reach out to remind everybody in America that in 2023, before we bought the intellectual property, that the company went out of business. We all know that Bed Bath went out of business a few years ago. Now we're trying to make a comeback. And I would think that a governor would want to attract investment, attract capital into the state. In fact, he did the opposite. He rejected it. It's a very simple model for me. As a capitalist myself, I want to do business in all 50 states, and I want to do business with all people of all political parties. That's part of being a capitalist. But what I don't want to do is put my shareholders, my employees, and myself in a situation where we're regulated to a zero. And we don't want to spend $100 million coming into California and then find out that the state's going to take it all and waste it all.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You would think that's what Gavin would do. He doesn't have to plead publicly. But you would think after hearing something like that, a company's creating a bunch of jobs in a lot of states, but not yours, maybe privately have a conversation and be like, hey, look, what are your demands? What are your concerns? Maybe we can find a way to make this work because more jobs for our state is good, right? That's, by the way, even what Donald Trump would do, despite all of the, back and forth about how he's not diplomatic or something, or maybe he would say something publicly, but privately he'd be trying to figure out a deal. Because he wants jobs in this country, he wants businesses in this country. Gavin Newsom's apparent economic philosophy, as summed up right here, so brilliantly by his own press office, F you bye, right? I'm running for president, don't you know? As the governor of this state, I don't have time to care about my own state economy. The fact that people in my state want jobs, right? Again, maybe he'd have the luxury to talk like this if he didn't have the highest unemployment rate, but he does for that precise reason, okay? And this is not a problem that's going away. Bed Bath & Beyond, whatever, that's one business. How about the fact that all these businesses are leaving or shutting their doors or just not hiring new workers or automating or doing whatever? Because guess what? Unanimously, it is a massive problem to have any type of economic capital still left in that state. It's unlivable. It's awful, right? But sure, he's going to go keep having the highest unemployment rate. His state's economy is going to be in a total crisis. And as the leader of this country, because that's always what Gavin says, right? Oh, other states need to take California's lead. Is that what you want them to take the lead in, by the way? Highest unemployment rate. Anyway, my point is this. How long can you gaslight and go into 2028 talking about Donald Trump and expect people not to ask these questions? Because guess what, Gavin? In 2028, you're not going to be running against Trump. You're going to be running against likely J.D. Vance, maybe Marco Rubio's, but someone who doesn't have the same, orange man, therefore I can just ignore everything. You're going to have to actually defend your record. And clearly, right now, again, the arrogance and hubris doesn't care enough to even build a record, okay? But don't you know, guys, don't you know Democrat voters? Okay, fine, Democrat primary, but what do you do in the general election? Don't you know independent voters? Yeah, I may have the worst economy in the whole United States, even though, as I said, I inherited like the best one, but I redrew a congressional map on partisan lines. Isn't that going to make the difference? Anyways, that said, guys, this is far from just a private sector economic issue, because let's also talk about the public sector, where currently the state of California is going bankrupt. Such an amazing job. This guy, can't you just tell? He's such a successful governor, right? As you can see right now, California is facing a $20 billion budget deficit. And while they do this, while they spend money like drunken sailors, no idea how to manage it, they have, first of all, the highest state taxes in the country, maybe rivaling New York, but I think the California income tax is actually higher there. And that is correlating to the highest poverty rate in America, the highest unemployment rate in America, obviously the highest homelessness in America, and the highest gas prices in America. And of course, right, this is like the Newsom MO. What are they doing instead of addressing any of that? Oh, let's spend $250 million on a special election about gerrymandering, right? But it's also worth questioning how this all happened. What amazing decisions of the most competent governor in America could lead to a $20 billion budget deficit? Well, part of it is including in a trend you've seen a lot nationwide in the past few months, where I think Colorado said they're facing similar budgetary issues. The city of Chicago, a lot of Democrat states are in this issue. And why exactly is that? Because I remember actually just a couple years ago, Gavin Newsom celebrating the fact that he had a budget surplus. See, we know how to manage money responsibly. You know what happened? The Joe Biden stimulus money has dried up. That's exactly what's going on. And it's not exclusive even to Democrat governors. Okay, you're seeing this in some cases in private sector issues as well, like across the board. Some people during COVID, some entities who got all the free stimulus money and did not think, hey, I'm not going to have this stimulus money in 2 years. Maybe I shouldn't set a permanent budget based on my amount of stimulus money. That's the responsible thing to do. But instead, what did many of these Democrats do? What did, by the way, a lot of liberal school districts and city governments, as well as we mentioned, do as well? They saw the Biden stimulus money and they basically spent like drunken sailors. Oh, let's have this, let's have that. And now a few years later, where there's no more Biden stimulus money, they're realizing they can't pay for all the new crap they started. It's very hard to get rid of things like social programs. It's unpopular once you bring them into conception. So what's happening now? There you go, $20 billion budget deficit. And guys, if you want some details on perhaps what California has been spending money on, would it exactly shock you to find out here that one of the contributing factors to the $20 billion deficit is the fact that they're giving billions and billions of dollars of free healthcare to illegal immigrants? And guys, we're not actually making this up. This is not a straw man. This is not a right-wing attack. No, this is quite literally a major reason why California is in a debt crisis, is because guess what? They spent all the COVID stimulus money giving healthcare to illegals. Take a listen.
We were off. We were significantly off.
On Wednesday, Governor Gavin Newsom admitted the state was wrong when he initially predicted back in January the state would have a $363 million surplus in the state budget. Newsom is now blaming the Trump administration's actions for the lack of incoming revenue, calling it a, quote, Trump slump.
We're going to see an impact about a $16 billion downturn, not all in the next fiscal year, but fiscal year plus one.
Governor Newsom says the state is now facing an $11.9 billion deficit with a $321.9 billion budget and $15.7 billion in reserves. The governor's office wants to do several things, including using billions from the state's rainy day fund and even negotiating state workers' pay.
The intent is really to avoid increased costs in the upcoming fiscal year, as not to implement furloughs or PLPs or those type of things.
The governor is also proposing changes to Medi-Cal.
$5 billion on a freeze on our Medi-Cal expansion. We're not cutting or rolling back those that are enrolled.
This would apply to those receiving Medi-Cal regardless of immigration status. The governor is proposing a $100 premium for undocumented immigrants, and the freeze would apply to new adult applicants older than 19.
We're just capping it, particularly for those without documentation.
In response, Republican lawmakers say the state cannot continue to provide Medi-Cal services to people without documentation.
We just simply can't afford it. And he's acknowledging that by this budget's adjustment. And in future budgets, I think we're going to see more.
So, of course, you already see the talking point that Gavin Newsom is inventing for his economic and financial woes in California. It's the Trump slump. It's Trump's fault that California is in a budget deficit because they can't manage their own money. By the way, I have sources that can confirm this. This is apparently a massive thing going on right now in a lot of public sector areas, like government, civil service stuff, education, all of that, where a bunch of people are saying it's Trump's fault that they're losing funding or they're having to do with layoffs or furloughs and all this stuff. But again, as I said, the reality of the situation, why this is all happening, is these people spent all the COVID stimulus money irresponsibly. They use it like a credit card, not understanding, hey, in 3 years it's not going to be there. And then now they're like, what? We can't pay for anything. How is this happening? Because maybe we shouldn't have just printed a bunch of money to give to you idiots to begin with. The entire point was to keep the economy above water while we're in lockdown. And in reality, that's not even what happened. They just gave out a bunch of money and now everyone's in all this debt and all these issues, right? But anyways, that's point number one I find hilarious. Though number two, of course, is the fact that now as a result of their crushing debt crisis, California is rolling back its free healthcare programs for illegal aliens. Isn't that so hilarious? Of course, back in 2023, California was celebrating the fact, under Gavin Newsom, by the way, I know he wants to pretend like he wasn't governor 2 seconds ago, but California in 2023, December, becomes the first state to offer health insurance to all undocumented illegal aliens. About 700,000 adults this was supposed to apply to, but I'm going to assume there's more than 700,000 illegal alien adults in California. But anyways, there you have it. So they were touting this proudly. This was not some big grand secret. Again, newsflash. First of all, you couldn't afford that. Because despite your constant attacks on the right wing, there is actually only a finite amount of resources to go around. It turns out you can't provide to everyone. And in the end, American citizens have to be the priority. Now, when we say that we're evil, mean, xenophobic, racist, and we just don't have compassion for our diverse immigrant communities, but when you are now apparently saying the same thing, I don't know, that's fine, or that's Donald Trump's fault, number one. Of course, number two, it's very ironic because what's California now doing in 2025 is eerily similar to the Medicaid reforms made in the big, beautiful bills. And they attacked us so much because we said no more Medicaid for illegals or non-citizens. You're taking away healthcare. People are going to die. How dare you do that? But in California, the state with the highest illegal immigrant, and I'd probably even legal immigrant, right, population in the whole United States, they're now doing the same thing. They're doing exactly what the big, beautiful bill did. But when we do it, it's like evil lack of compassion for people. When they do it, it's just fiscal responsibility, which they suddenly now want to practice, right? But isn't that just so hilarious here? Again, it's not just that California is going broke. California's going broke largely because they tried to give illegal health care out to illegal aliens. The 2028 talking points really do write themselves here, Gavin, okay? Again, this is the reality. When you just say biggest GDP, where state's doing so amazing, we have so much compassion. No, this is the reality of how it goes. As you can see, right? This is indeed confirmed. California Governor Gavin Newsom is walking back free healthcare for illegal aliens in the 25-26 budget proposal. He's looking to scrap the free Medi-Cal for low-income illegal aliens, citing high costs and economic challenges. Wait a minute, but how could that be? Wait, hold on. Let's pause a second. So when the right wing, when Stephen Miller and many characters tried to say that illegals were a drain on the economy, I thought that's not the case. I thought they're working, the jobs that Americans won't do. They're a vital part of this country, They're paying taxes. Hey, I thought the illegals were paying taxes. So why aren't their taxes paying for their free healthcare, Gavin? Why is that not correlating, huh? I thought like liberal economic ideas are just so fantastic and, isn't that interesting? You can't afford to pay for it. For these supposed people who are tax positives on our country, they're contributing. Stop being xenophobic. Well, that's one way to create a massive financial crisis in your own state entirely of your own doing. But this is Donald Trump's fault, guys. Remember this. It's Donald Trump's fault California no longer has money to give to illegals. Well, in that case, I firmly support this, but in reality, that's not the case. Okay, in reality, no, it was a stupid idea, and this is yet another failure of Newsom.
Is there any limit to how many people can sign up for this new program? It's an entitlement. So if 1 million people cross the border tomorrow and come sign up for Medi-Cal, can they do that?
I don't believe there is any requirement or lack of a requirement.
Yeah, that's my concern is there's no limits and it's going to create an incentive. We had 300,000 people cross the border illegally last month in December. And if all those people decide to come to California and sign up for Medi-Cal, it's going to bankrupt the system. Can you look Californians in the eye and tell them that adding 700,000 illegal immigrants under Medi-Cal is going to improve their access to health care?
Governor Gavin Newsom's Department of Finance is now telling lawmakers the state needs billions of dollars in loans, all to cover costs associated with Medi-Cal. Newsom's office told lawmakers that they had underestimated how in the red the program is.
Well, I feel like telling "I told you so" to Democrats is sort of overplayed at this point, but that might be the most astonishing example of it. Okay, everything this California representative Republican tried to warn was indeed correct. You're going to incentivize more illegal immigration. You're going to have an incentive structure problem, and it's not going to be able to pay for itself. What did the Democrats say? It'll be fine. We're compassionate. We're Californians. We all stick together. We're just so amazing and progressive. And Gavin Newsom, don't you know? He's like the best governor of all time. That did not end well, guys. But anyways, again, just such a... I feel like Donald Trump needs to be made aware of this story. Donald Trump needs to make this a national story. All he needs to do is send out a few truth socials. This could be a big thing, okay? Again, the fact that the California state government is bankrupt, it's broke because of illegal immigrant healthcare. You can't even make that up. The fact that the unemployment rate is the highest in America, but Gavin Newsom keeps saying the GDP. Have you seen our GDP? This is a 5-alarm fire, and the more it becomes a national story, hence why I'm doing this video, the harder it will be for Gavin Newsom to, actually run a campaign, right? Because he can attack Trump, and, it's easy to be the opposition. What happens when you actually have to put your own record on the table? Those are questions, and that said, guys, there you have it. So, that said, do us a favor. If you enjoyed our content today, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, see you later. God bless, and peace.